Alright, here we go. Wide open throttle. Welcome back to JB Reviews. Today is the day. I have my gas 6.6 liter L8T V8 and I have the Duramax right here. They are both 2024s and we need to see if the diesel is still king of fuel efficiency. We're gonna get them on the highway. We're gonna do acceleration tests. I'm super excited. And yeah, this should be a good test for you guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Special shout out to Jerry Seiner. If you are in the market, these guys do have quite a bit of 2024s available and they're discounting them. How can you beat that? Let's go. Alrighty, so we're going to drive the Chevy diesel first and then we'll drive my gasser next. So we're gonna do it all in the same spot. I'm gonna pull up next to this white Chevy Silverado that has a diesel actually too. It's a 1500. And let me go ahead and reset trip 1 and let's go. So I'm really excited to see how this shakes out. Today the temperatures are, any day now, 91 degrees. Whoa! So that temperature is actually really good. That's a really good temperature, guys, especially for the diesel. Diesels do better with heat. But man, one thing I love about diesels is that weight you feel on the front. And I'm so glad I get to kind of drive these trucks back to back because this is my first time. Even though I have the dually is just heavy. So I think that this is a good comparison to how this truck's gonna do going down the road. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, most people know that you now have more horsepower and torque under the hood of these Chevy Silverado diesels. This is gonna have 470 horsepower, 975 pound-feet of torque, made it to a 10-speed stamp-approved Allison, and 342 gears is probably gonna be where this truck wins at. So all in all, this setup is really strong, potent, and you guys are gonna see that in the acceleration. All right, here we go. Wide open throttle.
30. 60.
I don't think that my truck can beat that. So this truck is a little bit lighter because it is a lower trim level, but it doesn't really matter. This truck has insane power as you guys just heard. But apart from that, I mean, that turbocharger just gets this thing moving. But as I mentioned earlier, I just love how heavy this truck feels. This truck feels so heavy, and that's just something that you don't get with the gasoline. Let me show you guys the RPMs at 70 miles an hour though real quickly. So running about 70 miles an hour, we're like just over 1500 RPMs. Now, as I mentioned, this truck has a 342 rear end. So let's go ahead and scoot up to about 80 miles an hour. I'm gonna be using cruise control for most of this trip. I have the AC on because it's hot outside, guys. I'm not putting that on. So now we're what, about 1800 RPMs. Truck is quiet. Feels good too, guys. Yeah, diesels just perform better. Now this truck does have Michelins too, and those Michelin tires ride extremely well. I wanted to do the sound level for you guys. I always forget to do this. It's about 65 to 67. 68 to 69 by the window. 66 to 67 out back. But the Michelins are quiet. The Duramax, you don't hear it at all. Transmission's super smooth. And yeah, I mean, there's just nothing to complain about. You're at low RPMs in the diesel. Doesn't get any better than that. Exit 297. So here's where we are. 14.8, that is not bad. Now that's with the acceleration too. Not bad at all. And we're just coasting down. And we're just gonna go back the opposite direction. And we'll just check in when we get back. So here are the numbers for the diesel. So this truck weighs 8,184 pounds on the curb. So this truck is still heavier than my High Country, but if they were both like diesels, my High Country would probably be like 8,400 pounds maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. We are back at the dealership, and I'm actually surprised by the fuel economy. I guess having the AC on high, it's been on high the whole time because it is hot out here, guys. It's 83 degrees right now actually, but when the sun is beaming down on you in Utah, it's just ridiculous. So we'll stop over to the left and I'll show you guys exactly where we end off at. So you guys see that little Trailblazer right there? We'll stop here, and that is the MPG, and time 20 minutes. Alrighty, let's see what the gasser is gonna do. I'm actually really excited about this because, you know, I've been really trying to sell myself on these gas HDs, and honestly, it's been hard. So let me go ahead and reset trip 1, and let's get going. So one thing about gas is you do have that low end torque. It comes on a little bit stronger versus the diesel, because, you know, diesels are heavy, as I mentioned, and they just have no low end until you really get on them. Now for 2024, they do have a lot of performance, I will say that. They have a lot more low end torque than they have in the past, so when you're already moving a little bit, that engine just kind of, it really gets going. But when you're just kind of going from zero, it does hesitate a little bit more. But we're gonna see the 0 to 60 here in a second. I don't think this truck's gonna beat it, but we'll see. We shall see. The 6.6 L8T gas engine is probably one of the best in the segments. Back in 2020, they introduced this engine and it had the 6-speed. Now it has a 10-speed, stamp of approval Allison, and it still has 401 horsepower, 464 pound-feet of torque, and 373 gears out back. And we're gonna see just how fast it can get to 60. Now mine does have dual alternators, so I wanna just kind of make that point too. So there they are. Let's check out the performance.
$30. $60.
This truck is slow. Now, a little bit of that is probably the elevation. So I did run some octane boost because they did put some 85 in here, and I don't use 85. Like, I know that I don't keep my carbs long enough for it to really be justified, but I'm just not gonna do that. So this truck is down on power. I cannot wait to tow with this thing, because, you know, I've said this in the past. A lot of people got mad at me when I did that video saying, oh, you know, this truck needs more horsepower. Oh, trust me, this 10-speed is a godsend. Problem is, you don't have enough power between the gears, especially at high elevations. So that's the only thing I'll say is, I like this truck as a cruiser, but if I'm gonna be towing a trailer, that's where I'm gonna really be interested at, because if I had enough money, I would twin turbo this thing, because it needs it. It needs 50 more horsepower at the bare minimum. And I mentioned this in another video. I said they should make a high output gas engine, and it just needs more power. That's why I think the 4 gears, the 7.3 with the 430 rear end, and also it has 430 horsepower, 485 pound-feet of torque. So that 30 extra horsepower would make a difference, I think, between the gears with this 10-speed. The 10-speed shifts smooth and confident, but if I were to accelerate right now, you would see how slow it is. Now I'll do some of those testings soon. Just hang in there with me. But like I said, I just wanted to touch base on that because that's something I've noticed about this truck, guys. Let's go ahead and see how loud it is inside of the interior. So right here, it's a little bit quieter actually. It's like a decibel quieter. about the same, 69.70 by the window. It's about a decibel quieter, 64 back there. So all in all, it is a little bit quieter versus the diesel. Now, one thing I've noticed since I've owned this truck, you do run a little bit higher RPM compared to the diesel. So the diesel, we're like right at about 1500 RPMs, but this one, we're like over. So let's go ahead and get up to 80. I don't know how long I can stay here for you guys, but yeah, traffic's starting to pick up a little bit. So having the 373 rear, you're a little bit higher on the RPMs. I'm at like 1900 RPMs. I want to say I was at like what, 1600 RPMs maybe? Maybe 1800, but it's a little bit higher. And that's not a surprise because again, you're running a 373 versus a 342 out back. So most people know this. Anytime you get a gas truck, this is always going to be the payload leader for the trim level that you choose. And this truck weighs 7,750 pounds on the curb, so it's pretty heavy for a gas truck. 3,800 pounds of payload. And the axle up front's the only thing that's really different. And of course the gross combined weight rating and towing capacities. Midpoint. So we're like about 2 MPG off from the diesel. So that's not terrible. I mean, what was that? 14.8, I believe it was. Well, they were traveling about the same mile an hour too. Yeah, 12.5. Oh, actually, we are not stopping. Actually, you know, we didn't stop at this light either with the diesel, I don't believe. I think we were kind of going right through it. But we're definitely 2 MPG, 2.2 MPG off if you want to be technical. But I'm happy I get to show this kind of testing to you to give you an idea. This truck is slow, guys. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this truck needs like 50 more horsepower. It really does. Like, all jokes aside, the 10-speed is a great addition, but it's slow. And I'm gonna vent a little bit real quickly. I hate this draggy. If you have been thinking about getting a draggy, don't do it. This thing sucks. This thing never works when I need it to. Like, I was literally waiting at the exit for like 5 minutes to get that thing to work. It kept throwing an error code. So if you're thinking about a draggy, skip it. Get something else. That thing is terrible. It never works when you need it to. And every time I do a video, I always have some type of issue. It takes a long time for it to load. So if you're looking for like a 0 to 60 timer, do not buy a draggy. But I wanted to say something else. This truck does feel heavy on the road. Like, the steering feels nice and heavy. Now the tire pressure, as I said, is the same. It's 67s on the front, 86 out back. And the transmission temperature, I didn't show it to you in the diesel, but it's 156 degrees on my gasser. This truck does feel a little bit stiffer too. And I wonder if it's because you don't have as much weight. So that's something else you have to consider too, guys, is I think these ride a little bit stiffer because you're down a few hundred pounds because of the missing diesel up front. We've made it back to the dealership. And, you know, this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. I guess this is the part where the diesels, without the emission stuff, you will see better fuel economy. But, you know, 14.1, actually, this is where we're stopping at. Next to the Trailblazer. So 14.1, 17.7 miles driven, 17-minute drive. Now, really quickly, when you saw the time on the summary page for the MPG and the drive time, that was actually 4 minutes lower than it should have been because I had to turn the gas truck off because I didn't want it to idle when I was trying to get my draggy to work. So that's why the time and the MPG on that page was off. So I just wanted to make that clear. So what do you guys think about that video? I was actually expecting the diesel to do a little bit better. I was thinking 17 in that ballpark, but 16.3 ain't bad. Now, with that being said, the gasoline did not do that bad at all compared to the diesel. But I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I'm just gonna say it. This truck is gutless. As I said in the past in a video, I said this truck needed more horsepower, and people are like, "You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." Oh, trust me. When you guys drive this truck, I'm telling you, it feels like there's power missing. Because of how close the gear spread is, it shifts down so fast that you notice that there's no power there, because when you drive the diesel has power everywhere. So when you have this 10-speed, there's just missing power somewhere. The 6-speed was better in regards to that. Now don't get me wrong, the 10-speed is really smooth in terms of like how it shifts, so you don't even feel it, but you can tell how slow the truck is overall. Now originally, I actually came here to do my testing against a 2023 gas with the 6-speed, but unfortunately the truck sold. I kind of wish I would have just did the testing earlier on, saved the footage and then put it up against this one, but nevertheless, I'm sure I'll find another one at some point. And you know, yeah, special shout out to Jerry Seiner for allowing me to do this test. Like, you guys saw the 0 to 60 and the 0 to 30. I'm not impressed by those numbers, and like I told you, in the past, when you guys thought I was an idiot, this truck needs more horsepower, like I said.